All right. Hi, everyone. My name's Tom Levine. I'm Cornerstone's technical specialist and commission specialist as well. Thanks for joining me today for your tech questions answered. This is really going to be more of an informal style excuse me, webinar compared to our other ones. If you've got a question throughout the presentation, please feel free to ask, and I'm happy to answer it. Just a few bookkeeping items before we really get started here. If you have a question, feel free to put it in the question area. If you don't feel comfortable using that, you can also put it in the chat box and I will answer it to the best of my ability. I did have a few questions from the start of the presentation, so I'm going to run through some of those first and then I will answer any other questions. If you have a question about what I'm covering while I'm going through it though, please feel free to type it in there, hit enter, and I will answer it then. Thanks. Additionally, if you have a question that you don't feel comfortable asking in this format or that you feel like you might need a little more attention to detail on, please feel free to give me a call at 513-487-5390 or just send me an email at tlevine@crnstone.com. Also, don't forget about our marketing consultation program. Jess Larkin is really impressive with that, and she'll help you get your brand off the ground. It's designed to help you reevaluate your brand and take it to the next level. It includes a brand audit, website creation, social media management, a brand identity kit, and even more. All brokers part of this service also receive the Evaluating Your Brand workbook. Services are first come, first serve though, and there is a waiting list. So, feel free to reach out to her today at jlarkin@crnstone.com and get ready to take your brand to the next level. Also, don't forget our autopilot program. It's our ASP program, our agency services program, and we will help you along with your business. It's part of our client referral program, our succession planning, retirement assistance, and service agreements. So we're here to help you. If you haven't looked into that already, I'd recommend going to www.crnstone.com/agency services program. So that being said, we have some questions. This is just going to be sort of brief, but I did have a few things I wanted to cover before I get some of the user submitted ones. Most questions that I see in tech are related to one of three things. The first is using older technology to interact with newer systems, so some sort of compatibility issue. The second is just sort of efficiency in tasks, or like how can I speed up this process kind of question. And then the last one is learning new skills. And I hope that a few of the things I cover today before I get into some of the user submitted ones help you a little bit with that. The first thing I want to mention is that Internet Explorer is ending. If you're one of those people who use Internet Explorer still, you're not alone. There's actually a lot of people who still do, including several people I know here. But the problem is support for that is ending. Here in, I believe, June 15th of 2022, if you're using Internet Explorer still, you will probably run into a lot of compatibility problems with websites. And so one of the most common questions I've received when I tell people that is, okay, well, what browser should I use? How do I switch that? I have a lot of information saved. What should I do to move between, a different browser? And actually, most browsers make it pretty easy. Once you install a new browser, the one I recommend and the one I'll be covering today is Firefox. It should typically just prompt you to import all of your old history, and it should show you how to access all your old browsers information. But if you've already got one installed, then you've probably passed that point and need to try it again. So I'm going to go ahead and walk you through how to do that with Firefox. The first step is to open up your Firefox window. And that'll lead you to your home page. I currently have mine set as Google. It looks like they've got something fun going on today. But all you need to do is go into the upper area, this menu, and hit this, what looks like a stack of books in the upper right-hand corner. I have my mouse over it right now, but I'm just going to circle it real quick to make it a little easier to see on the black background. And of course, my pen is black, which does not help. I'm going to change it to red real quick and recircle it right in here. Okay, so you'll click on that section, then go to bookmarks, and then go to show all bookmarks. What this does is it shows you all of the bookmarks that you've made throughout your system, and it also lets you access your browsing history, your downloads, your tags. Just think of this as sort of like the home base for all of your important information that you typically access. The easiest way to import your information from here is just to click Import and Backup, and then import data from another browser. Now, there are 3 browsers on this system. There's Microsoft Edge, Microsoft Edge Legacy, and Microsoft Internet Explorer. We're going to hit Internet Explorer today just because it's the one that I'm recommending switching away from. But if you have a browser like Edge or even Edge Legacy, then that'll be fine as well. What they're really cutting on Microsoft's end is the ability to use Internet Explorer successfully. It'll still work if you've already got it downloaded. Don't think it's just going to suddenly stop working, but it will run into a lot of issues with a lot of other websites, and I'd recommend switching away now if you can. So you select your browser and hit next. Select all of these options that you want to import. You can choose your cookies, which I'd recommend, also your browsing history, your saved passwords, and your favorites. I normally don't import my browsing history when I go between browsers, just because there's not much need. Cookies will already save all of the auto-filled information that you've already got typically. And favorites, I like to import them. Favorites are the same thing as bookmarks here. Then there's also saved passwords, which I like because I don't normally remember all the passwords that I save. Once you've selected all the options you want, you hit next, and we're done. It's all imported. So it's actually pretty easy to switch between browsers, and it's pretty quick. I normally don't cover it in my webinars just because it tends to be pretty straightforward, but that would be how you can switch between your browsers easily. A lot of different ones have relatively similar processes as well. They might just not be exactly the same. I know that if you're trying to move to Google Chrome, it's pretty much the same thing. You hit the 3 dots over here on your browser, which is where the 3 lines are in Firefox. Then you would go to import bookmark, from that you would go to bookmarks, then import bookmarks and settings, and it'll do exactly the same thing that I just showed you, but in Chrome. The next thing I wanted to cover is actually templates in Outlook. And this kind of goes back to the second part that I said, which is efficiency. A lot of tech questions revolve around being efficient in how you use your tasks and how you complete things. So we're going to load up my example profile here in Outlook, and I'm going to show you how to make a template. Templates are basically automatically filled out emails. So there are things that you'll type out a lot of different times. Often I see a lot of people trying to send the same sort of email out to brokers or clients over and over and over again. Things like, have you signed up for Medicare? Have you signed up for this? Have you signed up for that? And they're literally the same exact email, just changed in a few spots. So what we would do to help speed that process up is have an email that's already pretty much filled out, so we don't have to, type that all out or copy and paste it from something like Word. The way to do that is go to New Email and just start typing things out. I'm going to type in here, we're going to send it to Levine at crnstone.com. And our subject is going to be, this is an example. Then we're just going to put some text in here. This is sample text. Please delete later. All right, we've got most of it filled out. We have a signature here as well. And now I'm going to go ahead and save this as a template. You can also do things like include underscores here if I wanted to insert someone's name, or X's as stand-ins for phone numbers that I need to enter, things like that. So I know not to just hit go and send if you're going to make it a little more interactive. Then I go to File, Save As, and I'm going to make sure I have this Save As type listed here as Outlook template. And from here, you can save it pretty much anywhere. It'll automatically default to saving things here under templates. As you can see, I've already got one over here for auto reply as a template. But this one is called, this is an example, and I'm going to hit save on it. Then I can close out of my email, and I'm not going to save my changes. So now let's say we wanted to send an email with that template. All I would need to do is go to New Items, More Items, which is this option here at the bottom, and then choose Form. That opens the form library, and I'm going to look through the items in the top look in drop down up here. There's standard templates, which is like a standardized set of templates that Microsoft has if you want to look through that. But the ones that we're looking for are the templates we've created. So we're going to hit User Templates in File System. And as you can see, I have two saved here. I have this as an example, which is the one we had created, and I have an auto reply. I'm going to hit this as an example and then hit open. And as you can see, it's populated it out. The one thing I will mention about these templates is that if you have an automatically applied signature like I do, you're going to want to remove your signature from your template before you save it. And I left that there as an example. The reason is whenever it opens up a new email item, it'll automatically populate it out. The other thing I want to mention is that see how I saved the to information here and the subject that this is an example? It's auto-filled in here as well. So it does save that data too. If you have a example email that you send like weekly to the same person, then this is a good way to get it saved. You can just save it, hit open template to person, and then hit send here, and it'll send it out. And that's how you would use a template. I think it's really useful because it speeds up my email processes at least. But depending on your use, I think it could be pretty good or pretty bad. It really just depends on how you want to use it. And the last two parts of this before I get into some of the pre-submitted user questions is going to be how to access AGB, which is our online file system. And then it's also going to be how to access recordings for these webinars. Believe it or not, I get emails about that about every week. So I figure it's a good time to address that. If you hit your web browser or whatever you're going to use, just go to www.crnstone.com, and that will lead you to our main website. First, I'm going to show you where to access our recordings, and then I'll show you AGB. Recordings is our resource center, webinar series. And that'll lead you to this section of our website that shows all of the different libraries of our recordings. If you are a regular attendee of the individual corner or the group corner maybe, and you don't typically have time to actually watch it, then you can go into Access Recordings. And that'll have a recording of all of the webinars that we've done under that type of webinar right in here. You can also find these all online if you go to YouTube and search Cornerstone Broker Insurance Services Agency. We're the first address that pops up, and we upload all of these to YouTube as well. If you just click on one of these links, like the group corner with Humana, it'll automatically open it up and forward you to the YouTube page for that webinar. I'm going to go back and go to our home page now to show you how to access AGB. AGB is our system that lets people access their actual commission information, and it's going to be expanded a lot more here in the coming year. So I just figured I'd touch on it real quick. In order to get there from our website, you would just go to, where is it? What we offer, licensing and commissions. And that'll open up our licensing and commission services section. If you scroll down through here, on the left-hand side, you see here AGB commission statements. Click Access, and that'll send you to the main login page. You can then enter your username and password, or if you forgot your password, you can reset it using that hyperlink down there. That is how you would access AGB, and that's where we store all of our commission statements. So if you want to double check that, that's what I'd recommend. Finally, we do have some user submitted questions, and I'm going to be going through this in order a little bit. The first one that I've got in a submission order is actually from Glenn, and it's what's the process of linking the Medicare Center to your website? And that one was actually kind of a tough one for me. I don't normally interact with Medicare, but if you submit Medicare referrals, then my recommendation is for questions like this, you're going to want to reach out to our Cornerstone senior marketing team. And the first person I'd talk to is actually Matt Fry. His email, which I'm going to be putting in the chat here, is matt.fry@cornerstoneseniormarketing.com. And what that question really refers to is how would you link the submission section on the senior market or on the seniors area, the Medicare Center, to your website. So it's basically like a hyperlink. You click on like an icon on someone's website, it automatically forwards you to fill out your personal information, and then they'd be able to use that to get back in touch with you. At least that's how I interpreted it. That's just generally what I thought, but if you have a different sort of thing you're looking for, please let me know by putting it in the chat box. What you'll need to do with this in order to get it working is to first log into the Medicare Center and open the general application from there. I'm not really 100% sure what it's called because I don't typically work in the Medicare Center, but Matt Fry should be able to help you more directly with that. In the upper right-hand section of that screen, under Account Overview, you're going to want to click on the button to copy the link to the personal My Shopping area. Then you just send that to whoever is managing your web page, and they should be able to add that as a hyperlink to your website. Sorry, that's not really as in-depth as I'd like to go typically, but Matt Fry should be able to help you a bit more specifically on that end. The next question I have is a submission from Barbara, and it is, in your opinion, what are the prospects of using library computers to open someone's personal email and enroll from a link that I've sent them? And that's actually a really interesting question and a great one. Barbara, thank you for submitting that one. It's really optional, in my opinion. What I want to do actually to sort of show you what I'm going to talk about is open an internet browser real quick and just show you this URL. When I click on it, it's right here, but I'm also going to put it here in the chat in case you want to look at it a bit closer. That's just the link to Google, which is www.google.com. But what I really want you to look at here is the top part of that URL, where it says HTTPS, and that S is the important bit. What that means is that actual communication between the website and the computer you're accessing it from is secured. And that means that any information that you're sending back and forth with the website is encrypted. That doesn't mean that the browser you're using is fine or that the computer you're using is fine, but that does mean that any communication you have with the website from whatever device you're using is encrypted. If someone's trying to spy on you from over the internet, then they're going to have a tough time because your communication is going to be secure. Because of that, I personally feel okay with using a library computer to enroll in something through like the marketplace, for example. That's just a personal stance. Some people still might feel iffy about it. There's really no way to know if you're using a public computer if it has something like key logging software, which is where it'll log every single keystroke that gets entered into the computer. You have no way of knowing if someone's already uploaded something to monitor what goes on that device. But typically what library computers do is they will have something that wipes all of the computer's memory, like at the end of the day. So long as you're the only one logged in on that computer and you don't, click to remember any of the information you've saved, I think it's probably fine. The only other precaution that I would take as far as like removing data is to delete your browsing history when you're done. And what we're gonna do here is just go to browser, history, and then what you can do is you can actually clear your recent history by clicking on that button. And what that'll do is it lets you clear a time range of the browsing history. Last hour, last 2 hours, last 4 hours, even today, and everything. And you can use that to clear out the entire browser history of the computer you use to enroll from. And that's what I'd recommend doing if you're going to try to enroll from a public website. While that does not completely delete all of the activity log on the computer, it will delete all of the personal information that you've entered into the browser. And that's just what I'd recommend doing in order to enroll on a public computer. And you can walk them through that process pretty easy. On Internet Explorer, which I know we said is going to terminate here soon, you would just open it up. I believe it's this gear setting here. Yeah, this gear setting, history. If it's not there, yeah, under favorites, history, you can just select it and then hit delete on your keyboard, and it will delete that history. Alternatively, you could also be using Microsoft Edge. And what you would then do is hit enter on Microsoft Edge. Once it loads up, it's a little bit slower because this is the legacy version. And then you can go to the drop down here, history, and then delete things similarly as well. The other thing you can do from pretty much any browser is once you have it open, if you hit Control H, you'll be able to open up your browsing history and then delete everything from there. Control H is the keyboard shortcut for accessing that. And so long as you do that and the portal you're accessing is a secured portal, I think you're probably okay. But that's just personal preference. Your clients might have differing opinions, and the best way to enroll someone is just, if they don't have a personal device to use, is to let them use yours and then delete their browsing history. Our next question is from Sherry Smith, and it is there a product that you recommend that allows me to email a form to a client securely? The form may have personal information. And we actually do have one that we recommend here from Cornerstone, and that tool is Zix. Zix is our email encryption, and what that lets us do is it lets us send, secure emails to clients. They don't need to have a Zix, product at all in order to use it. And here is the link to their email encryption services. If you sign up for a demo service, then they will email you information about sign up and how to get, their product is more of a full-time thing. But I'd recommend just giving it a demo and trying it out. All we have to do here in an email to make it secure is type secure in all caps in the heading, and Zix automatically encrypts it when we send it out. I believe there's also some auto application to Zix, so whenever we're using it to send out email, it will also encrypt. The one thing I will say about it, though, is if you're using something like Yahoo Mail or a browser like that, like a browser-based mail system, you might not be able to implement something like Zix. It depends really what each program is compatible with. I believe Zix is still fine to use with something like Yahoo Mail, but I believe it's a different type of product. The only other thing I'd say is if you're using Mail, not Outlook, so MAIL, Mail is a separate app now, and that comes with Windows 10 default. What that is it's sort of like Outlook LTE, or it's sort of like a light version of Outlook. That means that while it works, it doesn't really have all the features, and I don't believe you can add encryption to the Mail app. So it depends on what you're running, depends on how you have it integrated, but my recommendation is to run Outlook with 6. And then I did have one other viewer submitted question, which was how long, sorry. First off, this is one submitted by Barb, and it is how long does a typical laptop last with regular use, but not like daily use? And I have kind of a complex answer to that question. To keep it simple, if you're using a Windows laptop, my recommendation is to replace every 8 years at the most. But that really depends on what type of work you're trying to do. If you're trying to do something like, editing marketing materials, then you might want to replace every 4 years. It really depends on what type of programs you're planning on running, how intensive you're planning on going with it, and what type of computer you've bought. There are a few different types of computers that are laptops nowadays. There's 2-in-1s, which are those laptops that can flip back into tablets or tablets themselves. Those are sort of like lighter versions of desktops and, well, not desktops, but laptops. They're like laptops with a few other extended features, but they don't really have all of the power of what a dedicated laptop would typically, with the exception of the surfaces. Those things are pretty impressive. The other options would be something like a Chromebook, which is not really a laptop at all. What it is it's sort of like think of it as like a bigger cell phone, honestly. It doesn't run apps locally. And for those things, if you're trying to run something like a database, you're going to have to use it remote. You don't really have much of a program thing that you can open locally. Those things, honestly, maybe replace it every 10 years. Those things shouldn't really die on you. And the reason is because they're very, very light, and most of the time they just need a software update. Unlike phones, however, they're not super small devices, and they're generally capable. So I'd recommend if you're using something like a Chromebook, maybe replace every 10 years. If you see something new that comes out that you want, feel free to replace it sooner. But for Chromebooks, as long as you get a mid-range one, you're not really going to need to do much more with it than what it's designed to do. And then the real answer is what type of operating system are you running? If you're using an Apple product, they actually have planned obsolescence, which is, in my opinion, kind of a garbage way to design a product. It adds a lot to e-waste, but that's just personal preference. Apple does make really good devices and their security is pretty top notch. So I just don't like having to pay out top dollar to replace my computer frequently. Most MacBooks are set up to be replaced every 4 years. And for a laptop that costs about $3,000, that's pretty frequent in my opinion. But if you're running a Windows laptop, then my recommendation is every 8 years. And that's just general laptop with normal use. That also brings me to another part, which is you're going to be replacing your laptop sooner, the lower quality of product you're going to get. And what I mean by that is if you have a small amount of RAM, if you have a very light computer, if you maybe spent about $500 to $600 on your laptop, then you're probably going to want to actually replace it every 2 to 4 years. And that's just because you're not going to be able to keep up with some of the newer things that are coming out. Oftentimes, if you buy a laptop in that sort of price range, unless you got a really good deal on sort of a newer device that's like just going out of season, you're probably running something from about 4 years ago already. So if you want to, keep that life cycle, it's going to be about 4 more years before it reaches its end, and that's about what I'd recommend. When you're buying a laptop, I'd recommend at least 16 to 24 gigabytes of RAM. That's just what I recommend in general for any computer. You're going to want something that has come out within the last 2 to 3 years, probably. You're going to want something with at least 4 cores in its computer, like the CPU. And you are going to want something with dedicated graphics, typically, at least in my opinion. If you're just doing general work, just browsing the web, you don't need that kind of stuff. But if you're going to be working on your own marketing materials, you're going to want some sort of graphics processing. And that's just to make your computer run a little faster as well. So that's really my recommendation. That was about all of our user submitted questions as well. So if you have any other questions, please feel free to let me know, and I will be happy to answer any other question that comes up. I'm pretty much always available by email, or if you give me a call, I might be available as well. And we're just gonna go ahead and from current slide, here we go. Put my information up on the screen there for you. It's 513-487-5390 for my phone number, and my email address is tlevine@sierraandstone.com. Once again, if you had a question about Medicare, my recommendation is to reach out to Matt Fry. His email address is in the chat, but I'm going to state it again. It is matt.fry@cornerstoneseniormarketing.com. So matt.fry@cornerstoneseniormarketing.com. And that is how you would reach out to him. If you have any other questions, please feel free to submit them. Otherwise, please have a wonderful day. Next week will be our last webinar of this year, by the way, and we will be covering VPNs once again. We've covered it a few times, and I just like to reiterate it every year. It's always good to understand sort of what encryption is, how VPNs work, and how to shop around for one that you would need. So if you have any other questions about those, please feel free to look forward to our next webinar, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm going to stay on for